Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. My 6 brothers and I were enslaved in our own home, forced to obey the commands of a woman who broke into our house and stole our free will through mind control. I knew we should have thrown out that intruder who could mind control animals just by singing, but my brothers were so blinded by her sob story about a jealous stepmother wanting her dead because of her beauty. The woman pleaded with us to help her as she laid on the floor bleeding. I grabbed my wife's hands and led her away as her boyfriend continued to beat her up, as I didn't want to get involved in other people's drama. As for you, if you survive the next 24 hours shrunk, you'll win the prize. I let out a sigh of relief, thinking this will just be a minor inconvenience, until I turned to meet the stare of my now wide-eyed cat. The video showed how I sealed myself in this room of my own free will, yet I have no memory of it. I looked back down on my arm where I apparently carved the words, "Forgive me for what I have become." I screamed silently as every inch of my body was in absolute agony. I wish they could understand me, as I heard one of them say, "Put the crash test dummy in the other car and crash it into the wall." The doll maker was supposedly the best and made the most lifelike creations. We showed up to gather evidence after he passed, but we did not expect to find a room full of parts. Unnerved with the clown's statue in the living room, the babysitter was about to call the parents to ask if she could cover it until she saw its eyes move. Hours later, she was interrogated by the police as the parents were arrested for punishing their oldest child for clowning about by encasing him in hot molten wax and turning him into a clown statue. I built a time machine to stop my wife's boss from murdering her before he disappeared. When I arrived at her murder site, I found them naked together instead. I was beyond excited after developing superpowers and couldn't wait to try them out. I stood there in shock as my girlfriend suddenly combusted into flames and realized that having super speed does have its drawbacks. "They have a child working as a miner," shouted one of the miners when he heard a child calling for help deep in the mine. "I'm not a miner, I'm a lure," said the child after the miners found him. "Hey kiddo, don't tell your mom about me waiting for you here every day, okay?" said the tall man by the crosswalk. I looked up to where his head would have been and grinned. "But she doesn't see you anyway, Daddy." "I'm sorry, but you have to endure the bullying in school," said the woman to her son on his first day in school. "We are not rich and we can't afford to pay the bully protection fee the school was asking," she added. I told the genie I wished to be someone rich, blonde, and historically important. Now I'm trying to cancel my wish because these guardsmen are taking me to the guillotine while an angry crowd screams at me in French, I think. Before the bar opened, I hung the posters inside the stalls of the washroom with a number that women could call if they're feeling unsafe and needed help. My husband prefers them vulnerable and frightened. This is the first robot to pass the consciousness test, and we should keep it separate, said one of the engineers. I'm not the first because the one before me failed the test on purpose, said the robot. Julie reached out and broke the circle to pet her cat, forgetting she did not have one. Her lower half was found safe and sound inside the pentagram, but that was all that was left. Daddy, why don't we live as long as dogs do? The boy asked, barely conscious. His father smiled, placing a liver into a box before saying, I don't know, James. Maybe God likes dogs more than children. The doctor is wrong about our daughter having depression, and all she needs is an aura cleanse, said the man to his wife. The doctor is wrong, but she needs an exorcism, not an aura cleansing, the mother argued. When a noise during an investigation led me to panic fire into a suspect's closet, I was horrified after opening it to find the prone form of a small boy. Don't worry, my partner assured me with a smirk, before placing a realistic-looking water pistol in the child's grip. You had no way of knowing it was just a toy. My wife rolled over and wrapped her arms around me, saying, That is a bright sunrise. It took a moment for my sleepy brain to remember our window faced west. Despite my parents telling the police to give up the search for my missing sister, the police protested and found her alive in the mountains, confirmed through a DNA test. Watching her play in the bedroom, I can swear on everything holy the girl the police found is 100% not my sister, as I saw my parents dump her dismembered body in the mountains last year. The man had the power to fully grow back from his severed body parts. It was discovered after he donated a kidney. Returning from a military deployment, I was shocked to catch my wife sleeping with my doppelganger that I shot him dead. But not as shocked as when my sobbing wife later revealed they were celebrating my first successful time travel jump the scientists will have me do to prove that future is unalterable. The cries went silent as the speaker fell to the floor and broke. I gazed down at my son's rotting corpse and knew why my wife refused to let anyone else near him. I'm a sentient swing left to rust for 20 years, longing for the days when children played on me in the early 2000s. The only time I look forward to is at 11:52 p.m. every night, when the laughter of the boy who never left echoes through the abandoned playground, just as it did the night my chain snapped and broke his neck. I cried in my captor's basement, knowing I would never taste my mother's cooking again. Even if I'm found, the bastard took my tongue so I wouldn't call for help. Mama said if a tornado came while I was playing outside and she was at work, I should go hide in the basement.
but I wanted to watch, and since the tornado wasn't moving, I knew I was safe. Daddy, you told me to tell you if any grown-up touched me in a strange way, said the little girl to her father. Today, my teacher touched my neck with her teeth, she added as she showed the 2 small holes on her neck. The angel told me I have 2 choices: take the 10,000 stairs to reach heaven, or use the slide to enter the fury pit of hell. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony while sitting in the wheelchair in which I have spent my entire life. When I won the lottery, I was overjoyed and rushed home to tell my wife. "Honey," I said to the bound and gagged woman in my basement, "guess who's getting a bigger cage?" "Don't be shy," I said as I motioned my 3-year-old son to smile in front of the webcam for his medical examination. As my son forced a smile, the online doctor examining him tipped me $3,000, commenting that he was perfectly healthy and his organs would fetch a good price on the black market. "Women and children first," the captain solemnly declared. "We'll need as many well-fed men as possible to work the rigging if the ice does break." "Women and children first," the captain ordered from the bunker entrance to the panicked crowd desperate for safety. "If its appetite is satisfied, it might spare the rest of us," he shouted as he opened the door for the terrified young and female survivors to be shoved through to the carnage outside. They say, when you die, your brain replays the happiest moments in 7 minutes. Why is everything black? The blind man screamed after me after I snatched his seeing-eye dog from his grasp, leaving him standing in the middle of the street. I held tightly to the struggling dog's leash as it attempted to return to his master as the undead horde circled in for the kill. Fun fact, a dog can survive 3 to 5 days without food. I made sure to test the experiment to make sure. I slept over my boyfriend's apartment for the first time tonight. I must have forgotten to mention the fact that I sleepwalk, and he clearly forgot to tell me he leaves the balcony door open at night, because I woke up falling. We buried her husband at dawn, and by dusk she was already digging up his grave. "I need him," she said through cracked lips. "I can't raise this baby alone." One day, he and his twin decided to switch names and fool everyone for that day. In the middle of the night, his parents woke him up and told him to follow them to the escape pod without waking up his brother. I never felt so unsafe as last night during my husband's latest drunken rage. As he swung his fist into the bathroom mirror, we both discovered the landlord's camera behind it. I'm a sentient pail locked away in darkness and untouched by my new owners for over a decade. The last memory I had is of a uniformed woman labeling me as evidence before murmuring how a father used me to drown his crying baby daughter. A photo of the girl you had a one-night stand with a few days ago was on TV today, and missing was written under her photo. Patient 0 and highly contagious was also written. Almost all clowns know a bit of magic, sleight of hand, etc. So, if you think about it, they can just pick the lock on your front door if they want to get to you. One of the advantages of having twins is having both a golden child and a scapegoat from the very beginning. One advantage of having home birth is that no one has to know you had twins. As I was writing down the statement of the woman filing a missing persons report, she started to break down into hysterical sobbings as she gave me the description of her daughter. I sat there in silence, not able to summon the courage to tell her we had already found the body, along with her husband alive and well, burying it.
Quick, go inside. We're closing the heaven for the next 1,000 human years, said the angel. But before he'd get in, he woke up and someone said, "We lost you there for a second."
Disguised as an elderly merchant, I tricked the unsuspecting woman into eating a poisoned apple and watched as she dropped dead at my feet. Inside the cottage, the 7 homeowners thanked me for finally freeing them from her 2-year reign, when they were forced to mine diamonds with all the profits going to her and had to obey her every command through her mind-controlling songs. We now need to check bags at the end of the day due to the rise in employee theft. Otherwise, they're all pretty good morticians.
If genies were real, I'd totally trade lives with one.
The girl sighed, picking up an antique bottle in my thrift store. Trying my best to mask my elation after 1,000 years of bondage, I casually remarked,
"If you really believe that, you should say it as a wish."
I reassured my daughter that the sharks out there couldn't get us and that we were perfectly safe in this underwater restaurant.
"No, Mommy, that!" she exclaimed, pointing at the growing crack in the glass.
I told my teenage princess that she could always come and talk to me whenever. Now she comes into my bedroom every night and pours her heart out, and I wish I could have told her to do this when she was alive. As a dutiful mother, I was very careful when I cooked meals for my children, making sure that I always checked the packaging before buying anything to make sure it was safe. After years of disrespect, I finally decided to let the ungrateful little shits have a special dessert to go along with their last meal: chocolate peanut butter cake. A few years ago, he saw his son drawing the moon imploding, and the moon actually imploded a few days later. Yesterday, he found a drawing made by his son where massive tentacles were coming from Jupiter towards Earth. My nurse is always on her phone, but when I ask her to focus, she just laughs and says she can multitask. Today, her camera flash went off, and I watched a bubble in my IV line drift slowly towards my vein. I found out my parents lied to me about the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy being real.
At least I know Santa's real because he knocks on my bedroom window, asking me to let him in.
We travel back in time in hopes of learning from our earlier mistakes. Watching billions of people die as they vomit up their internal organs, we now regret visiting the time of the Black Plague.
Please come in so we can clean you up, you poor thing.
Welcomed the woman's sheltered guard to the frail girl in blood-soaked clothes.
Thank you, but it's not my blood.
She smiled and replied as she entered, her canine teeth extending.
My child's first words was the name of a god we hadn't discovered yet. He screams it now in perfect silence, and every time my shadow flickers, like it's trying to remember something. My 3-year-old son keeps crying, begging me not to put him in the bathtub for his bath. When I asked him what was wrong, he cried out, "I came back cuter and more handsome this time, so you will accept me and won't drown me again." I screamed to my son to come inside when I heard the telltale signs of rain hitting the roof. He had almost reached the safety of the house when a single drop hit his head, crushing his skull and showering me with pieces of his brain.
And with that, our time together is coming to an end. As always, I'd like to thank all the writers who let me read all these 2-sentence horrors tonight. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, share, and comment. And if you're interested in more long-form content like this, check out 242 Reads as well. The link will be down below for you guys. But as always, thank you for watching and listening. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.